Hi, Jimmy here, and today we're going to do something slightly different. I've been watching a lot of Walter's World recently, and watching Mark's videos gave me a bit of an idea. He does videos about things that he loves and doesn't love about certain places that he's visited. So today we're going to talk about 5 reasons I hate living in a historic city. So, some of you might know I live in the city of York in England at the moment, and York is an amazing town. It's got a fantastic history. It's got 2,000 years of continuous occupation from the Romans through the medieval period to the modern day. So we've got Roman remains under pubs. We've got full Roman bathhouses underneath buildings. We've got the medieval city walls that you can walk around. They used to be 3 chocolate factories in the city. There's 1 now. They still make Nestle chocolate here. There's loads and loads of stuff here. It's an amazing town. I really like living in York, but I really hate living in York. And there are some reasons for it that I hope you'll understand. So I'm going to preface this with no judgment if you are in any of the above, in any of the stuff that we're going to talk about. There's no judgment. It's totally cool. I am or have been as well. But the first thing I hate about living in a historic city, and this applies to a lot of historic city dwellers all over the world that I've talked to, is the tourists. No shade on Mark, no shade on Walter's World. It's a tourist channel. He is a professional tourist, and I love that and I respect that, and I would do that if I could. But York is a city of 150,000 people, and every year 2 million people visit a city that is basically designed to have fewer than 100,000 people living in it. Like the centre, the city centre, the walled city of York is now less than 1/3 of York. And the majority of people who live in York do not live in the city centre, and there are reasons for that. But 2 million people a year, that's a lot of people. And there's a reason that the city streets look like this most of the time. Like, this is one of the main streets in the city. This is where the Poundland, basically the dollar store, is. This is the street that leads to the hardware store in the centre of town, where the cheap sandwich bakery shop is, where there's the chain coffee shop that everybody goes to when they're not working and doing street performance work. And this is just a Tuesday. Like, I didn't film any of this on a holiday or a special occasion. This is just a Tuesday at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is crazy here. The number of people that you have to fight your way through, especially on super historic streets like the Shambles, the old Butcher's Street, is just mind-blowing. And these are no longer really functional streets because of that. So the volume of people visiting the city means that some streets just don't function anymore. They are just effectively displays for people to take selfies in front of, which is kind of depressing when you think there used to be 30 butcher shops on the Shambles, and now there are 0. That's kind of sad. And it leads me on to the second thing that I hate about living in a historic city, and that is the traffic. Half of the people, so 1 million people a year, visit York in their cars or in hire cars. It is appalling trying to drive in this city. There's no free parking anywhere. I don't actually have a parking permit because I don't live in a street where you can have a parking permit, so I have to just pay for on-street parking, even though I live here and I need to go to the dentist and buy bread and stuff. And it's a very first world problem, but I hate it. I hate the fact that I need a car in the first place to get things done in this city because so many things have been pushed out of the city centre. I hate the traffic, and a lot of that traffic is visitor traffic. A lot of that is people coming to the city in their car, parking up as close to the city centre as possible, and I get it. I have friends and family with mobility issues, so I do that as well. Again, I'm not judging, but it just makes it more difficult to live in a place that should be wonderful. Don't get me wrong. Nearly half of the rest of the people who visit come by train, and that is fantastic and to be encouraged. But the heavy traffic of people and of cars are 2 of the big reasons why I kind of enjoy this town a lot, sometimes. I'm stood here in an allotment. I'm basically in the allotments just outside the city walls, which is amazing that there are allotments here. There aren't enough, there should always be more. But the third big reason that I don't love this city sometimes is the trash. York is a town where a lot of people come to visit, a lot of people come to the horse racing here. The horse racing has been going on in York for 300 years, so it is a part of the city's history. But when people come for the races, they come to get smashed. You will be walking into town at 11 AM on a Friday morning, and there will be people literally sitting in the gutter being sick because they've been drinking since they got on the train at 9 a.m. It is insane. Like, it beggars belief, the amount of cans and bottles and takeaway wrappers, high-heeled shoes, ties, various other items of equipment that I don't want to talk about on my channel that you just see littering the streets. It is awful. A lot of businesses, including one that I work with, shut down when the horse racing comes on, because it just isn't worth it. You'll get windows broken, you'll get people peeing up against your shop. Like, it's just horrendous. I've been assaulted by drunk people during the races just for dressing like I do, I guess. It was very unclear, but I hate how much garbage there is in this city. And that is, again, just due to the volume of people who are using takeaway wrappers or who are buying snacks, and then there aren't enough litter bins. And that's not the fault of the tourists and the visitors necessarily. That's also on the city council and the fact that they prioritise trying to get people to spend money on the tourist traps instead of maintaining the city for the people who actually live here. So, City of York Council, if you're watching, you need to up your game a little bit on the number of litter bins we have in this town. It's sad because York is a city built on a river, and that river is lined with pubs. And a lot of those pubs lose their glasses and their beer mats into the river. So the river is often full of trash, and there are swans and geese and ducks. We've even got a couple of otters trying to live their lives, and they're struggling because there's so much litter being thrown into the river, and it's a real issue, and it's difficult to police. The reason for I kind of don't love living in a historic city is it makes everything expensive. If you want to buy a pint of beer in York, at the moment, the average price for a pint of beer in York is £5.10. That is too expensive for a pint of beer. There are breweries in the city walls of York, and the beer is so expensive here, you might as well be in London. Food is expensive here. Housing is expensive here. I am paying well above the national average for my rent, and I live outside the city centre in a new build that's already getting damp and leaky because it's a new build. And it's not great. If I wanted to buy a studio flat, so a bedsit, a one-room flat, if I wanted to buy a room in the city of York, the least I could possibly hope to pay in the city, within the walls, is £250,000. And that's one of the reasons why there are so many empty shops in the city. The shops that survive are the shops that cater to people who want to come here to get drunk, or eat a kebab after their night out, or buy some tourist tat and then leave. Those are basically the shops that will survive. If you're doing booze, drunk people food, or souvenirs, your shop's probably going to be okay. But so many shops are empty in the city because the price of the ground rent in the city is astronomical. It is so high that independent businesses will survive 6 months, and then the cost of the rent alone will be far too high for them to cope with. And that is tragic. Like, we lose so many good businesses here. There used to be crafting shops that were great in the city. We had knitting shops, we had more butchers shops and bakers and greengrocers in the city centre, and so many of those can't survive that they've either had to completely shut down, move way out of town, or they pop up as market stall holders. And it's great if they can still do that, but it means that a lot of the city centre just doesn't work as a city anymore. It's a giant tourist trap. It's kind of like a theme park. So I'm going to take a break from ranting to just mention that this video is actually sponsored by NordVPN, which is amazing because I love the fact that I get sponsored videos. It's super cool. And if you haven't heard of NordVPN, NordVPN offers a virtual private network, and I've got some privacy and some quiet right here. IRL, real, true, proper life, and I like to have privacy on the internet, and that's difficult to get these days unless you go to NordVPN, and they've got an offer on, which is if you go to nordvpn.com/Welsh and use the promo code Welsh at the checkout, you get 4 months free on a 2-year subscription to NordVPN. And full disclosure, they've given me free NordVPN access as part of the sponsorship deal for these videos, which is great because it means that I can do things like watch the French and Canadian coverage of the Olympics by telling my laptop that I am in France or in Canada, so that I can watch the events with the French commentary and improve my French as I'm watching all of the events, which is amazing. You can do stuff like that. You can watch streaming services from other countries, you can bypass internet censorship, which isn't a thing that should exist, and you can do it if you go to nordvpn.com/Welsh, use the code Welsh at the checkout, you get 4 months free on a 2-year subscription, and it's great. You get loads of cool stuff. You get next generation internet security support, which is a thing that I enjoy having. There's like 2 lovely dogs sniffing me right now who would also love to have next-gen internet security, I'm sure, and they could get it if they had opposable thumbs and were able to type www.nordvpn.com/Welsh into a laptop or computer or internet-capable device, input the code Welsh at checkout. They too would get, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. I forgot to mention the 30-day money-back guarantee. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee on all of these things if you go to www.nordvpn.com/Welsh and use the code Welsh at checkout. You also get your 4 months free on a 2-year subscription. It protects you against phishing attacks. It protects you against all those other horrible things that people want to do on the internet to do with stealing your stuff and stealing your identity. You get to pretend you're in a different country. You could pretend that you're in Moldova so you don't get any ads on your YouTube. Do that. Go to nordvpn.com/Welsh, use the code Welsh, get all of those goodies. So the other thing, the final thing, the 5th thing that I don't like, you may have other things that you don't like if you live in a historic city, feel free to put them in the comments, is the wasted space in this city. So the majority, 90-odd% of the buildings that you are seeing here are empty. Above the ground floor is empty, because there is just this drive to get an empty shop full with a business in it to make money from tourists in the city centre. And the problem with that is, whilst that is all happening, the building itself is dilapidating because it's not been occupied, there isn't a business in it, nobody is actually paying money for it, it's effectively just wasted space, and that's happening all over the city. There is a full street in the city, Market Street, which is essentially vacant, which is ridiculous. That shouldn't happen in a city as bustling and as busy as York, a city with 150,000 people living in it, with 2 million visitors a year. There shouldn't be a street 200 yards long with a dozen shops on it that is impossible to keep filled. Like, all of the shops on this street are empty, and they've just put big posters on the windows saying, "Come to York, but be respectful." It's just, it's mind-boggling. I don't understand how that can work, but it's happening all over town, and it's really, really sad. Like, there are so many empty shops and empty flats, places where people used to live, places where people used to practice crafts and trades, and it's one of the things that I love. I'm very lucky that I get to go to Venice semi-frequently. Like, most years I go to Venice for a long weekend, and in Venice there are businesses that have been there for generations that are craftspeople. Like, they have bookbinders, they have printers, they have paper makers, they have shoemakers and cobblers, and in York a lot of that has gone. Right, there was a full street in the city centre that was the street where people made books, they printed books, and they bound books. And that street is now entirely dedicated to the tourist trade, which is great, because it means people are spending... I'm filming a video! And then a little old lady interrupted me whilst I was filming and would not leave me alone. But those are my 5 things that I kind of hate, disenjoy, don't really like very much about living in an historic city. You might have some different pet peeves if you live in a historical place, or you've lived in historic cities. Let us know if you've got any that you want to share with us. But yeah, I will do a little positive one. I'll do a 5 things that I love about living in a lovely historic place. And at the end of the day, would I rather live somewhere without all of this history and without all of this character and without all of this wonderful stuff for me to read about and enjoy and tell you guys about? No, of course. I would not trade the amazing history and the amazing research opportunities and all of the cool stuff I get to see every day. I get to walk across a city wall, a medieval city wall, to get into town every day if I want to. That's priceless. So, diolch yn fawr iawn unwaith eto am wylio. Thank you very much, as ever, for watching. If you want to support the channel, then like, subscribe, join the Patreon, send me a coffee thing, all of that good stuff. And until the next time, tan y tro nesa, hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.